Hello and welcome back to the Golden Ancient Tales channel, where history comes alive. Globe showing Asia Australia sparkles. If you love diving into stories of lost empires, ancient wonders, and timeless legends, then you're in the right place. Today, we journey into one of the world's most astonishing creations, the Great Wall of China, a wall so vast that it seems to touch the heavens. Before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell us what ancient wonder you'd love us to explore next. Now, let's travel back thousands of years to the land of dragons, emperors, and unbreakable determination. Long before China became the vast and unified empire we know today, it was a land divided, torn apart by centuries of warfare, ambition, and endless struggle for dominance. The land was a battlefield of 7 mighty kingdoms: Qi, Chu, Yan, Han, Zhao, Wei, and Qin. Each believed they were destined to rule over all others. But destiny, as it often does, had already chosen its champion. The state of Qin, nestled among the rugged mountains of the west, was small but fierce. Its people were known for their discipline, strength, and unyielding will. And from this land rose a man unlike any before him, a young king who would one day reshape the world. Zheng, the ruler who would become Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. From the moment he took the throne, Zheng's vision was clear: to end the chaos and bring all under heaven, Tianxia, under one rule, one banner, one emperor. For decades, the warring states tore at each other's borders. Armies clashed across plains drenched in blood, generals fell, and cities burned. But Qin had something the others lacked: unity of purpose and iron resolve. Through cunning diplomacy, ruthless warfare, and the brilliance of his generals, Zheng's armies began to conquer one state after another. One by one, the mighty fell. The banners of Chu, Zhao, and Wei were torn down, replaced by the black and gold insignia of Qin. Farmers, soldiers, and scholars alike whispered his name with both awe and fear. And in the year 221 BC, the wars finally ended. China was no longer a patchwork of warring lands. It was now an empire. The boy king of Qin had become the first emperor, the son of heaven. His dream had come true. Studio microphone narrator continues. But victory brought new fears. The emperor's throne sat on a mountain of power. Yet he knew that what had been united through blood could be torn apart again by rebellion. His empire was vast, stretching from the eastern seas to the edge of the great northern steppes, where fierce tribes, the Xiongnu, rode wild horses and attacked like the wind. For centuries, these northern nomads had raided the borderlands, burning villages, stealing livestock, and vanishing back into the mountains before Chinese soldiers could respond. To the newly crowned emperor, this was an insult, an open wound upon his empire's pride. He summoned his council of ministers, scholars, and generals, with maps spread before them. They spoke of fortresses and armies, of strategies and treaties. But none could guarantee safety from the endless northern raids. Then one advisor, an elderly general who had spent his life defending the border, knelt before the emperor and spoke. "Your Majesty, the northern states once built walls to defend themselves from these barbarians. If those walls could be joined, repaired, strengthened, we could create a barrier that no enemy could ever cross." The court fell silent. The emperor rose from his throne, his golden armor gleaming in the torchlight, his eyes, cold and commanding, fixed on a map that showed the jagged northern frontier. "Then we shall build it," he declared. "A wall that will last for 10,000 generations. A wall so vast that even the gods will marvel at it." The hall erupted with the echoes of his words. And in that moment, the dream of the Great Wall of China was born. From the capital city of Xianyang, royal messengers galloped out in every direction. Edicts were read aloud in villages and towns. All men, soldiers, and peasants alike shall serve the emperor to construct the Great Wall. And so began one of the most ambitious undertakings in human history. Tens of thousands, soon hundreds of thousands, of men were gathered from across the empire. Soldiers who had once fought in the wars, prisoners condemned for crimes, and farmers whose lands lay idle after conquest. All were pressed into service. They carried tools of iron and bronze, ropes of hemp, and baskets for stones. There were no machines, no cranes, no beasts strong enough to ease their burden. Everything was lifted by hand. carried on shoulders dragged by sheer willpower. They worked through blazing summers, freezing winters, and the unrelenting hunger of the wilderness. Many never returned. Studio microphone narrator slows, solemn tone. The Great Wall was not built in a single line, nor by a single people. Long before Qin Shi Huang's decree, small fortifications had already stood, guarding the borders of separate kingdoms. But now, under command, those fragmented walls were joined, rebuilt into one continuous line of defense stretching across mountains, deserts, and valleys. The project was beyond imagination. Stones were hauled from quarries miles away. Earth was packed, layer upon layer, to form the core. In the remote regions where there was no stone, workers made bricks from clay and sand. Bamboo scaffolds rose against sheer cliffs as men climbed to impossible heights. At night, fires flickered along the slopes, the light of thousands of torches glowing against a darkened sky. From a distance, it looked as if the earth itself was bleeding light. The wall grew, not as a single structure, but as a living serpent of stone, slithering over the land. Each day it stretched farther, higher, stronger. Studio microphone narrator, dramatic build-up. But beneath the glory was a terrible cost. Thousands of laborers died, from exhaustion, starvation, accidents, or the cruelty of overseers. Many were buried within the wall itself, their bones sealed within its foundation. Legends say the Great Wall was built not only with bricks and stone, but also with the souls of men. And yet, for every life lost, another took his place. The emperor demanded progress, and progress would not stop. News of the colossal wall spread across the empire. To the people, it became a symbol of both fear and pride. They marveled at its grandeur, whispered prayers for the dead, and told stories of spirits that guarded its towers. The emperor himself saw it differently. Standing atop the newly built sections, he gazed northward, his black cloak fluttering in the cold wind. Before him stretched a world untamed, a realm of shadows and riders, of unknown dangers. But behind him lay his empire, unified, mighty, and eternal. "Let them come," he murmured, his voice carried by the wind. "No one shall ever breach this wall. My empire will stand forever." Studio microphone narrator, soft conclusion. In that moment, under the rising sun, the Great Wall became more than just a barrier. It became the emperor's promise to eternity, that China would remain unbroken, its people safe behind this colossal guardian of stone. But history, as always, would test even the mightiest dreams. The wall would grow, crumble, and rise again over centuries, shaped by countless hands and untold stories. And though the emperor's bones would one day turn to dust, his vision, his Great Wall, would echo through time as one of humanity's greatest wonders. The story of the Great Wall had only just begun. The year was 221 BC. The dust of war had finally settled. The land that once echoed with the clash of swords and the cries of soldiers was now silent under the rule of one man, Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. But for the emperor, peace was not a time for rest. It was a time to build, to shape his empire into the image of immortality. Within the walls of his grand palace in Xianying, he summoned his ministers and generals. The vast hall shimmered with gold and jade. The scent of burning incense filled the air. On the marble floor lay maps of rivers, mountains, and the endless northern frontier. The emperor stood before them, his armor gleaming beneath torchlight. His eyes, sharp as the blade of a sword, studied the maps with silent fury. Beyond those northern borders lay a land of shifting sands and rolling plains, home to the Xiongnu, fierce horsemen who rode like the wind and struck without warning. "They are ghosts of the steppe," said one general. "They come and go before our soldiers even draw their bows." "Ghosts can be trapped," the emperor replied coldly, "and walls are cages for ghosts." He turned to his court, his voice echoing through the great chamber. "We shall build a wall, not of words, not of dreams, a wall of stone and earth that will guard China for all eternity." A stunned silence filled the hall. The emperor's command was not a suggestion, it was law, and from that moment, the destiny of millions was sealed. Studio microphone narrator, somber tone. Messengers were dispatched across the empire. The imperial decree spread like fire through the villages and provinces. By order of the Son of Heaven, all able-bodied men, shall serve the empire in construction of the Great Wall. Soldiers, laborers, and prisoners will work as one for protection of China. At first, people rejoiced. They imagined a wall so mighty that no enemy would ever cross. But joy soon turned to dread as imperial soldiers arrived to gather the workforce. From every village, fathers and sons were taken. From every prison, convicts were marched in chains. From every corner of the empire, the emperor's command echoed, "Build!" The journey to the northern frontier was long and merciless. Through mountains blanketed with snow, across barren plains where no crops could grow, the laborers marched. Many never reached the work site. Those who did were greeted not by shelter or comfort, but by endless fields of dirt and rock, stretching farther than the eye could see. Studio microphone narrator, rising intensity. The construction began at dawn each day with the beating of drums. Thousands of workers toiled under the burning sun, their hands raw from lifting stone, their backs bent from the weight of the emperor's ambition. They dug into frozen soil. They hauled boulders up cliffs with ropes made from twisted grass. And when the night fell, they slept on the cold ground, their only shelter the stars above. Supervisors, loyal to the emperor's command, stood watch with whips and spears. No man dared to rest before his quota was met. Those who faltered were punished. Those who died were buried in the wall itself. Their bodies mixed with mud and clay, their souls forever bound to the structure they built. It is said that the cries of the dying became part of the wind that howls along the Great Wall even today. Studio microphone narrator, somber, reflective. Despite the suffering, the work continued, for the emperor's vision was greater than any one life. He wanted a wall that would outlast generations, a shield that would guard his empire even after he was gone. In his mind, the wall was not merely stone and earth. It was power made visible. It was a boundary between civilization and chaos, between China and the world beyond. The emperor himself toured the construction sites, traveling in grand processions with banners that fluttered like dragons in the wind. When he stood atop newly completed sections of the wall, he would gaze into the horizon where the deserts kissed the sky and declare, "Now, even the gods must look down to see where China ends." His words inspired awe among some and fear among others, for while the wall grew taller, so too did his hunger for control. Studio microphone narrator, dramatic pause. The emperor's command extended beyond the wall. He ordered that roads be built, great highways connecting every province. He standardized writing, currency, and measurements so that his empire spoke one language, used one coin, and lived by one law. But no project compared to Great Wall. It devoured resources like a beast, stone, wood, food, and, most tragically, human lives. Entire mountains were stripped bare to feed its growth. Forests fell, rivers were diverted, and villages were emptied. The wall crept over the land like a serpent of stone, winding across 13,000 miles of rugged terrain. It climbed mountains, descended valleys, and stretched across deserts where no man dared dwell. Each section was guarded by watchtowers, fortresses, and beacons that could send smoke signals by day and flames by night, a communication system that spanned the empire. From one tower to the next, messages could travel faster than riders, faster even in thought. "If the barbarians attack," declared one general proudly, "we shall know before their horses even breathe upon our soil." The emperor smiled, a rare, cold smile, for to him, every stone laid was another step toward immortality. Studio microphone narrator, somber shift. But among the workers, whispers began to spread, stories of hauntings and curses. They said the spirits of the dead wandered through the camps at night, their hollow eyes watching the living toil where they had fallen. One legend tells of a young man named Fan Shiliang, a farmer pressed into service, who vanished one stormy night. His wife, Meng Jiangnu, searched for him across mountains and rivers, only to discover he had perished while building the wall. Her grief was so deep that she wept for days and nights, her tears shaking the heavens until a section of the wall collapsed, revealing her husband's remains. Even the gods, it seemed, could not ignore the pain the Great Wall had caused. Studio microphone narrator, steady, powerful tone. Yet despite the sorrow, the work continued. Year after year, Section after section, the wall grew, a living monument to human endurance and imperial will. And through it all, the emperor's command echoed to the mountains. Build, build until the world knows the strength of Qin. His ministers bowed, his generals saluted, his people obeyed. But deep within the hearts of those who labored, there was both pride and bitterness. They knew that though their names would be forgotten, their sweat and blood would live on in the stones they laid. The wall would stand as both a symbol of protection and a grave of sacrifice. Studio microphone narrator, closing tone, reflective and emotional. As the sun set behind the mountains, the emperor looked upon his creation, a wall stretching beyond the horizon, glowing gold in the fading light. He whispered to himself, "This is my legacy. This is eternity." But little did he know, time would one day humble even the mightiest of kings. And though the wall would endure for centuries, the empire that built it would not. The Great Wall of China was no longer just a defense. It had become the very soul of a nation, a story written in stone, and a reminder that greatness always comes with a price. The Great Wall was no longer a dream. It was becoming a living, breathing monument. From the deserts of Gansu to the mountains of Liaoning, the emperor's command had awakened the land itself. The rumble of carts, the clang of hammers, and the shouts of overseers filled the air like thunder rolling across the empire. But behind the grandeur of this vision lay a hidden truth, a truth soaked in blood, sweat, and stone. At dawn, the laborers rose to the sound of beating drums. There were men from every corner of China, farmers, prisoners, soldiers, scholars fallen from grace, and even artisans who once built palaces now reduced to hauling stones. They ate nothing more than millet gruel and dried roots before marching to the worksite. The day began with fire in the sky and ended beneath a blanket of stars. They lifted stones until their hands bled. They dug trenches until their legs could no longer stand. Each block of stone was carried by human will alone. No animals, no machines, just strength and suffering. Those who collapsed were left behind. Those who defied orders were beaten. And those who died were buried where they fell, within the wall itself. It was said that the Great Wall was built not only with bricks and clay, but also with human lives. Studio microphone narrator, somber tone. In the beginning, the work seemed endless. The mountains resisted their chisels. The deserts devoured their supplies. The northern winds cut through their clothes like knives, and the summer sun turned the earth into a furnace. But even nature bowed, slowly, painfully, to the emperor's will. Stone by stone, layer by layer, the wall began to rise. It crawled like a gray dragon across the land, climbing mountains and slithering through valleys. From a distance, it looked alive, an endless serpent of stone that grew with every passing season. For every mile completed, new watchtowers were built, rising like silent sentinels above the horizon. They were tall, square, and solemn, places where guards would one day light signal fires to warn of enemy approach. Each tower was connected by narrow paths where soldiers would patrol, bow in hand, eyes fixed on the northern plains. And yet, long before the soldiers came, it was the laborers who lived and died upon those walls. Studio microphone narrator, haunting tone. At night, the construction sites turned eerily quiet. The workers, too weak to speak, would lie on the ground and stare at the stars. The winds whispered through the unfinished walls, carrying with them the cries of those who had perished. In the stillness, some claimed to hear faint voices, ghostly murmurs calling from the stones. "We are the wall. We are the wall," they whispered, as though the dead themselves had become part of its foundation. One tale speaks of a young laborer named Bo Wei, who carved his name into a single brick, so his family would know he had lived. Years later, his brother came searching for him, but all he found was that brick, now sealed deep within the wall. He fell to his knees, weeping, realizing that his brother had become part of the emperor's dream forever. Such stories spread to the empire, told in hushed voices around campfires, forbidden but never forgotten. Studio microphone narrator, intensifying tone. Despite the unbearable hardship, the wall kept growing. The emperor's inspectors rode from site to site on horseback, ensuring no section lagged behind. Supervisors held scrolls detailing every worker, every stone, every foot of progress. And behind them, Guards carried whips to remind all the emperor's will. Faster, they shouted. The Son of Heaven does not wait. Yet even the emperor's power could not silence the storms. Blizzards buried work camps. Sandstorms swallowed tools. Avalanches crushed entire crews in the mountains. But when the snow melted and the sand settled, new laborers were brought in and the work began anew. There was no end, no rest, no mercy. Studio microphone narrator, reflective tone. Over the years, the wall became more than just a physical structure. It became a symbol. To the emperor, it was the mark of divine authority. To his generals, it was a weapon of defense. To the scholars, it was proof that the empire's power stretched beyond the imagination. But to the people, it was a wound that would never heal. Mothers watched their sons taken away, knowing they would never return. Children grew up calling the wall the long grave. Yet, paradoxically, even those who suffered took pride in it, because deep down, they knew they were part of something eternal, something greater than any single life. Studio microphone narrator, descriptive shift. As the wall stretched across the land, it passed through deserts like the Gobi, where the wind howled like wolves. In the mountains of the Yanshan Range, workers balanced on cliffs to lay stones that seemed to defy gravity. Farther east, near the sea, the wall dipped toward the waves, standing guard against unseen invaders from distant lands. No empire had ever attempted such a thing. Travelers in the west, merchants along the Silk Road, and nomads of the north all spoke of this colossal wall, a structure so vast it seemed to slice the heavens from the earth. Many doubted such a thing could exist, until they saw it with their own eyes. The Great Wall of China was becoming a wonder of the world, born from pain and persistence. Studio microphone narrator, rising tone. Still, the wall was not one continuous line. It was a collection of fortifications, connected, repaired, and rebuilt by countless generations. The emperor's engineers designed it with military genius. Beacon towers for signaling danger, barracks for troops, granaries for supplies, and secret passages for messengers. Each stone had purpose. Each section told a story. And when seen from above, though no one in that age could see it from the sky, it looked like the spine of a dragon stretching across the body of China itself. That dragon became the symbol of strength, endurance, and protection, the same symbol that endures in Chinese culture to this day. But to those who toil beneath its shadow, the dragon was both guardian and devourer. Studio microphone narrator, somber conclusion. Decades passed. The emperor grew older, but the wall continued to rise. Higher, longer, mightier. It was said that even he began to fear the sheer power of what he had created. One evening, standing atop a new section overlooking the endless wilderness, he spoke softly to his advisor. "Tell me, will this wall truly protect my empire?" The advisor hesitated before replying. "It will protect your majesty, but only from enemies outside. What are the walls within men's hearts?" The emperor said nothing. His gaze drifted to the horizon where the wall vanished into mist. A reminder that no barrier, no matter how great, could stop the march of time. Studio microphone narrator, final tone, powerful and emotional. The Great Wall of China stood as both a triumph and a tragedy. It was a monument to unity and an altar of sacrifice. It represented the will of one man and the suffering of millions. Each stone bore the mark of a life lived, a dream lost, a sacrifice made. Together, they formed a masterpiece of endurance, a wall that would defy centuries, dynasties, and empires. And though the workers' names were forgotten, their spirits lived on in the whisper of the wind that races along the wall's length, in the echo of footsteps upon its ancient stones, and in the heartbeat of a nation built upon blood, sweat, and stone. For years, the Great Wall stretched higher and farther than any human eye could follow. Across jagged mountains and deserts of endless sand, it stood as a line between two worlds, the empire within and the chaos beyond. The emperor had built it to keep the Xiongnu tribes at bay, fierce horsemen who struck like lightning and vanished into the horizon. And for a time it worked. The raids slowed. The borders held. The empire slept soundly beneath the shadow of the wall. But what the emperor did not foresee was that danger does not always wear armor or wield a sword. Sometimes the deadliest enemies are invisible, hidden within the hearts of men. Studio microphone narrator, softly reflective. Years passed, and Emperor Qin Shi Huang's once mighty rule began to crumble under its own weight. He had united China, standardized its laws, coins, writing, even its roads. But peace, once won, is a fragile thing. Beneath the calm surface of his empire, cracks began to form, the same way cracks appear in stone long before a wall begins to break. Corruption crept like ivy through his court. Officials demanded bribes to excuse men from wall labor. Generals grew arrogant, fighting more for pride than for protection. And in distant provinces, the people whisper the emperor's cruelty, of families torn apart, of bones buried within the wall's foundations. The wall that had been built to protect the people was slowly becoming a symbol of their suffering. Studio microphone narrator, somber tone. Yet the emperor refused to see it. He was obsessed with immortality, searching for elixirs that would let him live forever, to rule his wall, his empire, his legacy for all eternity. He ordered expeditions across the seas in search of mythical islands where immortals dwelled, while his alchemists boiled mercury and jade, hoping to craft a potion of eternal life. The empire he left behind began to decay. The Great Wall still stood strong against the northern wind, but within the empire, unseen forces, greed, betrayal, and ambition, were eating away at its core. No wall could guard against time. No stone could hold back corruption. No emperor could outlive death. Studio microphone narrator, rising tone. When Qin Shi Huang finally died, his death was hidden for weeks by fearful officials. They sealed his carriage, disguising the stench with carts of rotting fish, so that no one would know the Son of Heaven had fallen. And with his death, the empire trembled. Rebellions erupted like wildfire. Provinces that had once sworn loyalty to Qin turned against it. The mighty wall, that symbol of unity and defense, now guarded a kingdom divided from within. The very men who had built it now rose against it. They saw the wall not as a monument of protection, but as a tomb for their fathers. In the chaos that followed, the wall was left untended. Sections crumbled. Towers fell silent. The empire, Qin, born in blood and bound by stone, collapsed within a generation. Studio microphone narrator, gentle transition. But the Great Wall did not die with Qin. Its story had only begun. As new dynasties rose, the Han, the Sui, the Tang, and later the Ming, each ruler looked upon the wall and saw not ruins, but opportunity. They rebuilt it, expanded it, and made it stronger. For though the Qin dynasty had fallen, its wall had become something greater than one emperor's dream. It was now a symbol of China itself, a dragon carved into the earth, eternal and unyielding. Studio microphone narrator, intensifying tone. Yet even as emperors rebuilt the wall, the invisible enemy remained. Corruption seeped through every dynasty like water through cracked stone. In the cities, wealthy officials grew fat while peasants starved. Supplies meant for wall repairs were stolen, and soldiers stationed at the frontier often sold their weapons for rice and wine. In one dynasty after another, the story repeated. A new ruler would rise, vow to restore the wall's glory, and end up repeating the mistakes of the past. The wall endured, but only barely. What once stood as an unbroken line of defense became a mosaic of strength and weakness, honor and betrayal. Studio microphone narrator, haunting tone. Still, the nomads of the north, the Xiongnu, and later the Mongols, watched. They studied the wall, the guards, the gates. They waited for weakness, for negligence, for human error. Because even the greatest walls are only as strong as the people who defend them. And eventually they found their moment. In the centuries that followed, the steppe warriors would return, faster, smarter, and more organized than ever. They found open gates, bribed commanders, and struck where the wall was weakest. Fire signals blazed across the night sky as soldiers rushed to defend the breaches. The Great Wall shook under the weight of hooves and war cries, proof that stone alone could never keep out the tides of history. Studio microphone narrator, reflective, philosophical. For every wall built by man, there comes a time when it must face its invisible enemies, not invaders from the outside, but the decay within. The Great Wall faced many such enemies. The greed of corrupt officials who sold its stones to build homes. the negligence of commanders who let its watchtowers fall into ruin, the slow, relentless march of time that cracked its surface and softened its edges. But perhaps the greatest invisible enemy of all was forgetfulness. As centuries passed, the wall's purpose faded. New generations grew up far from its shadow, never knowing the price that had been paid in blood and sweat to build it. Studio microphone narrator, softly emotional. And yet, even broken, the wall stood. Through wars, floods, invasions, and dynastic collapse, it refused to vanish. Each stone, though weathered, carried a memory of 1,000 lives. Each tower, though empty, echoed with the whispers of long-dead sentinels. The Great Wall had survived emperors, armies, and invisible enemies of time itself. And though it could no longer stop every invader, it continued to stand for something far more powerful, the resilience of a people who refused to disappear. Studio microphone narrator, rising to a powerful close. When you walk the Great Wall today, you see the work of countless generations, the early layers of rammed earth from the Qin, the bricks of the Han, the mighty fortifications of the Ming. Each dynasty added, repaired, and rebuilt, each believing they were preserving their legacy. But what they were really preserving was something greater, a bond between the living and the dead, a conversation between past and present, a reminder that true strength is not in walls or weapons, but in the endurance of the human spirit. Studio microphone narrator, closing tone, emotional and thoughtful. The invisible enemies that sought to destroy the Great Wall, greed, time, betrayal, still roam the world today. But just like the wall itself, humanity continues to rebuild, to rise again from its own ruins. And so, the Great Wall of China stands not merely as a relic of the past, but as a mirror reflecting the truth of all empires, that no matter how high we build, it is what lies within that determines whether we stand or fall. There are walls of stone, and there are walls of sorrow. The Great Wall of China was built with both. Behind its cold bricks lies not only the sweat of thousands of laborers, but also the tears of countless families torn apart by duty and fear. And among those stories, one stands above them all, a story so powerful, it is echoed to the ages as a cry of love and loss. This is the tale of Meng Jiangnu, the woman whose tears brought the Great Wall to its knees. Studio microphone narrator, softly with wonder. Long ago, during the reign of Emperor Qin Shi Huang, when the Great Wall was still rising like a serpent across the mountains, there lived a kind and gentle woman named Meng Jiangnu. She was born in a peaceful village by the Eastern Sea, a place far from war, where people lived simply, growing rice and fishing in the morning light. Meng Jiangnu was known for her beauty, but even more for her heart. She cared for the old and the sick, shared her harvest with the poor, and believed in harmony above all things. Then one winter night, fate arrived at her door, trembling, starving, and frightened. Studio microphone narrator, tense, cinematic tone. The man's name was Fan Qiliang, a scholar who had fled the emperor's soldiers. He was one of many who had been captured to build the Great Wall, taken from their homes to labor until death. But Fan Qiliang had escaped, wounded and desperate, and found refuge at Meng Jiangnu's home. Without hesitation, she took him in. She hid him from the emperor's men, nursed his wounds, and shared her food with him. Days turned to weeks, and the two began to fall deeply in love. Their bond grew like spring blossoms after a long frost, fragile, pure, and full of hope. Studio microphone narrator, softly romantic. Soon, they were married in a simple ceremony under a willow tree by the river. No grand procession, no gold, no guests. Only love, laughter, and a promise to stay together forever. But forever, as it often does, proved to be shorter than they dreamed. Just 3 days after their wedding, soldiers stormed their village. They dragged Fan Qiliang from their home, ignoring Meng Jiangnu's cries. He was taken away to join the thousands of men building the Great Wall. Meng Jiangnu ran after them until her feet bled, but the army vanished in the horizon, leaving her standing in the dust alone. Studio microphone narrator, sorrowful tone. Seasons passed. Winter came again, and still there was no word from her husband. Each night she prayed to the heavens, asking only that he might live, that he might return to her. But no one ever came back from the Great Wall. Still, she refused to give up hope. When spring returned, Meng Jiangnu sewed warm clothes with her own hands and set out on a long and dangerous journey to find her beloved. She crossed mountains wrapped in mist, rivers that roar like thunder, and forests filled with wild beasts. She begged for food, slept under trees, and walked barefoot through the snow. But her love kept her going, a flame that no storm could extinguish. Studio microphone narrator, emotion building. Finally, after months of hardship, she reached the Great Wall. Before her stretched a sight, so vast it took her breath away, a wall of stone and sorrow that vanished into clouds. Everywhere she looked, men labored like ants, their faces hollow with hunger and exhaustion. She went from worker to worker, calling her husband's name. Fan Chiliang, Fan Chiliang, have you seen my husband? But no one answered. Some looked away. Others lowered their heads in silence. Then, at last, one old worker spoke. Lady, your husband, he is gone. He died months ago. His body lies beneath the wall. Meng Jiangnu froze. Her heart shattered. She fell to her knees, her cries echoing across the hills. Studio microphone narrator, somber, trembling voice. For 3 days and 3 nights, she wept beside the wall, her tears soaking into the earth. The wind howled as if mourning with her. And then a miracle happened. As her tears fell, the ground beneath her began to tremble. A great rumbling filled the air, and suddenly a section of the wall collapsed, revealing the bones of the men buried within. Among them, she found a piece of her husband's robe, the one she had sewn with her own hands. Holding it close, she whispered, Now that I've found you, my love, I can let go. With her last breath, Meng Jiangnu threw herself into the cold waters of the river below. Her spirit, they say, became one with the wind that still blows across the Great Wall. Studio microphone narrator, softly, poetic tone. The emperor soon heard of this strange event, a woman's tears that could bring down his mighty wall. At first, he was furious. He ordered her body found and punished, but when he saw the ruin her sorrow had caused, even he was shaken. He demanded to know who she was, and when he learned her love and loyalty, the mighty emperor, the man who had made nations bow before him, stood silent. Some say he ordered a grand tomb built for her. Others say he prayed at the spot where she died, asking the heavens for forgiveness. But one thing is certain. From that day, the Great Wall was no longer just a symbol of strength. It became a monument to the power of love and sacrifice. Studio microphone narrator, reflective, emotional close. For centuries, people have traveled to the section of the Great Wall where Meng Jiangnu wept. They leave flowers, burn incense, and whisper prayers to her spirit. They say her tears still fall when it rains, and when the wind sweeps across the wall, you can hear her calling her husband's name. The story of Meng Jiangnu is not just a tale of tragedy. It is a testament to the strength of the human heart. It reminds us that no matter how mighty an empire, no matter how high its walls, love will always find a way to reach across them. Studio microphone narrator, philosophical tone. Today, when tourists walk along the Great Wall, most see the beauty, the grandeur, the endless stones that touch the sky. But if you pause for a moment and listen, really listen, you may feel something deeper. A whisper in the wind, a sorrow that lingers, a love that time could never destroy. That is the true spirit of the Great Wall, not just a fortress of stone, but a testament to the hearts that built it and the tears that made it sacred. And so, dear listeners, whenever you hear the name the Great Wall of China, remember not only the soldiers and the emperors, but also Meng Jiangnu, the woman whose love was stronger than an empire and whose tears made history weep. When Emperor Qin Shi Huang's empire crumbled into dust, many believed the Great Wall would crumble with it. The first emperor was gone, his army scattered, and his dream of eternal unity broken. But while his palaces turned to ruins and his tomb was buried beneath the earth, the Great Wall remained scarred, weathered, yet unyielding. It's still like an ancient dragon sleeping across the mountains, its body broken in places but still alive. And as centuries passed, new emperors came and went, each looking upon this colossal monument and seeing something different. To some, a relic of tyranny. To others, a shield of destiny. The Great Wall began its second life. Studio microphone narrator, transition tone, historical sweep. The Han dynasty rose from the ashes of Qin around 206 BC. Emperor Gaozu, the founder of Han, at first saw little value in rebuilding the wall. He believed diplomacy, not defense, could bring peace with the northern tribes. And for a time, he tried. The Han sent gifts of silk and grain to the Xiongnu, hoping to buy peace through friendship. But peace, like sand, slips easily through fingers. Raids returned. Border villages burned. And the Han realized that even goodwill needed protection of stone and watchtowers. So the emperors of the Han dynasty rebuilt the wall, not merely to defend their lands, but protect the newly opened Silk Road. This vast trade route stretched thousands of miles, connecting China with Persia, India, and even the distant lands of Rome. Caravans laden with silk, spices, and gold wound their way past the wall's shadow, guarded by its watchful towers. The Great Wall, once built for war, became the silent guardian of commerce and culture, a bridge between East and West. Studio microphone narrator, steady, poetic. As the centuries passed, dynasties rose and fell like tides upon the shore. The Sui dynasty came, ambitious and short-lived, strengthening parts of the wall to reunify China once again. Then came the Tang dynasty, a golden age of poetry, painting, and power. The Tang emperors ruled a realm so vast and peaceful that for a time, they no longer feared the northern tribes. The wall grew quiet. Its garrisons emptied. Grass began to sprout between the cracks of its stones. But the Tang rulers did something remarkable. They transformed the Great Wall from a military barrier into a symbol of peace and confidence. Where soldiers once marched, now travelers and merchants passed freely. Where torches once burned, now poets stood and wrote verses to the sunset. One Tang poet, gazing upon the endless line of the wall, wrote, 1,000 miles of sorrowful dust, and yet it guards 1,000 dreams. The Great Wall had ceased to be merely a defense. It had become a living testament to endurance itself. Studio microphone narrator, ominous tone. But peace never lasts forever. The Song dynasty rose after the Tang, bringing art and innovation, yet struggled with enemies on all sides. Powerful nomadic kingdoms, the Khitan, the Jurchen, and later the Mongols, pressed from the north, hungry for conquest. The wall, by then ancient and neglected, could no longer hold them back. And so, when the Mongol horsemen thundered across the plains under their fearless leader Genghis Khan, the wall fell silent. No flames lit its towers, no horns cried out warning. The invaders rode through gaps left untended for centuries, and for the first time, the Great Wall failed to protect the Middle Kingdom. Under the Mongols, the wall became a relic, unnecessary, unwanted. The conquerors ruled from Beijing itself, inside the land the wall once vowed to protect. For nearly 100 years, the Great Wall lay in ruins, a fallen dragon, coiled in dust. Studio microphone narrator, rising tone, hope returning. But destiny is patient. In the 14th century, when the Ming dynasty rose to power, the Great Wall was reborn. The Ming emperors had learned the lessons of the past. They knew that neglecting the frontier would lead to ruin. And so, they began the greatest reconstruction in history. Stone by stone, tower by tower, they rebuilt the wall stronger than ever before. No longer a simple barrier of packed earth, the Ming Great Wall was a masterpiece of engineering, crafted from solid stone and brick, stretching nearly 13,000 miles across deserts, rivers, and mountains. They built beacon towers to send smoke signals by day and fire by night. They constructed fortresses like Jiaguan and Badaling, where thousands of soldiers could rest and resupply. They carved narrow stairs into cliffs, laid bricks across valleys, and raised battlements so high they seemed to touch the heavens. It was during this time that the Great Wall became what we recognize today, not just a defense, but a symbol of national pride and unity. Studio microphone narrator, proud, cinematic tone. Along the wall, life thrived again. Farmers planted crops near garrisons, merchants traded goods between the watchtowers, and soldiers stood guard against the winds of the northern plains. Some even brought their families to live near the wall, entire communities rising in its shadow. The Ming emperors stationed elite troops, called the Ji Sun, along the frontier. They trained day and night. Lighting signal fires the moment danger appeared on the horizon. For the first time in centuries, the Great Wall was not only strong in stone, it was strong in spirit. Under the Ming, the wall became a heartbeat, the pulse of an empire ready to defend its soul. Studio microphone narrator, somber transition. Yet even the strongest wall cannot hold forever. By the 17th century, the Ming dynasty began to crumble under the same invisible enemies that had haunted Qin: corruption, greed, and betrayal. When the Manchus rose in the northeast, the wall once again faced its ultimate test. But this time, it was not conquered by force. It was opened from within. A Ming general, weary and disillusioned, betrayed his post at Shanhai Pass, opening the gates to the Manchu army. The wall that had stood for 2,000 years fell, not to invasion, but to treachery. And thus, the Qing dynasty was born. Studio microphone narrator, reflective, poetic close. Still, the wall endured. It watched dynasties rise and fall, emperors dream and die, and people rebuild again and again. Its stones, weathered by centuries, had seen both the best and worst of humanity, from love and loyalty to greed and fear. By the time the Qing dynasty came to an end in the early 20th century, the Great Wall was no longer a fortress of defense. It had become a fortress of memory. And yet, even in ruins, even half swallowed by the sand of time, the wall stood tall, a monument not to power, but to perseverance. It had become the silent storyteller of China's soul, whispering through its cracks the tales of emperors, warriors, poets, and lovers. Studio microphone narrator, soft, emotional tone. When you stand upon the Great Wall today, you do not stand upon the work of a single man or dynasty. You stand upon the labor of generations, the hopes of millions, and the dreams of a nation that refused to fade. From the Qin to the Han, the Tang to the Ming, each dynasty added its own story, its own scar, its own strength. Together, they forged something greater than stone. They forged a legacy that no time can erase. And that is the true Great Wall of China. All great things, no matter how mighty, must one day face the silence of time. For 2,000 years, the Great Wall of China had stood against the winds of the north, a sleeping dragon whose scales were made of stone. But as the centuries turned, the world around it began to change. New empires rose with guns instead of swords. Diplomacy replaced warfare, and the roaring trade routes that once needed its protection shifted elsewhere. The wall, once the heart of the empire's strength, began to fade into the background, forgotten, overgrown, and broken by the passage of time. The dragon had fallen asleep. Studio microphone narrator, steady tone. When the Qing dynasty came to power in the 17th century, the wall's purpose all but vanished. The Qing emperors were themselves of Manchu origin. Once the very outsiders of the wall had been built to repel. To them, the Great Wall was a relic of an older time, a scar dividing a land they now ruled as one. And so they left it to decay. The watchtowers grew silent. The beacon fires that once lit up the skies at the sign of danger burned no more. Moss crept over the stones, and the cries of soldiers were replaced by the whispers of the wind. Over the next centuries, rain washed away its mortar, frost split its bricks, and earthquakes tore holes through its ridges. Farmers nearby began to use its stones to build homes and barns. Unaware they were dismantling history itself. Bit by bit, the Great Wall, the pride of emperors, was reduced to dust. Studio microphone narrator, melancholic tone. By the 19th century, travelers passing through China spoke of the wall as if it were a myth. Western explorers who arrived during the age of empire, men like Marco Polo centuries earlier and Lord Macartney later, wrote of its vastness and awe, though many locals barely noticed it anymore. In villages near its shadow, children played among its ruins, using its fallen stones as stepping stools and seats for storytelling. To them, it was simply part of the landscape, ancient, mysterious, but silent. The Great Wall was no longer a wall of defense. It had become a ghost of memory, sleeping beneath the dust of centuries. Studio microphone narrator, slow, powerful tone. Then came the modern age, a time of rebellion, war, and rebirth. In the early 20th century, China entered one of the most turbulent periods in its history. Dynasties fell, warlords rose. Foreign powers carved up the nation, and the Great Wall, now nothing but ruins, stood as a haunting reminder of lost unity. During the Second Sino-Japanese War, soldiers once again marched across the wall's remains. In 1933, fierce battles raged along the Gabiku and Badaling sections. For the first time in hundreds of years, the Great Wall was once again a line of defense, not against nomads, but against modern armies. Bullets struck the same stones that arrows once hit. Smoke rose once more over its towers. And though many sections were destroyed in the fighting, the wall endured, refusing to vanish, even in fire. Studio microphone narrator, soft, hopeful tone. After the war, China began to heal, and as a new nation emerged, so too did a renewed sense of pride in its ancient wonders. By the mid-20th century, archaeologists, historians, and locals began to rediscover the Great Wall, not as a fortress, but as a heritage of the Chinese soul. Old maps were studied, ruins were surveyed, and explorers trekked across thousands of miles of wild terrain to trace the wall's forgotten paths. Some sections were so remote that no one had walked them in centuries. They climbed mountains, crossed deserts, and braved sandstorms, all to uncover the body of the sleeping dragon. What they found was breathtaking. The wall was far longer, more complex, and more magnificent than anyone had ever imagined. It wasn't one continuous wall, but a network of walls, built and rebuilt by different dynasties, stretching over 13,000 miles from east to west. Each section told a different story, of the Qin's ambition, the Han's trade, the Tang's poetry, the Ming's might. Together, they formed the spine of China's history. Studio microphone narrator, inspired tone. In 1957, under the guidance of the new Chinese government, restoration began on the Badaling section, a part of the wall just north of Beijing. It was chosen because of its historical importance and its accessibility to the people. Stone by stone, craftsmen rebuilt the towers, repaired the bricks, and cleared the vegetation that had swallowed it whole. When it reopened to the public, thousands of visitors came. Scholars, soldiers, farmers, and children, all gazing upon it with awe. For the first time in centuries, the Great Wall stood proud again. And as the years went by, more sections were restored, each one revealing new mysteries and old legends. Studio microphone narrator, global tone. Then, in 1987, the Great Wall of China was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, officially recognized as one of humanity's greatest achievements. It was no longer just a symbol of China. It became a symbol of human determination and endurance, a monument that proved that even in ruin, greatness can survive. Today, millions of people from around the world travel to walk upon its stones. They climb its steep stairs, run their hands across its weathered bricks, and gaze at the endless mountains stretching beyond. Some laugh, some cry, and all feel the weight of time pressing gently against their hearts. Studio microphone narrator, reflective, philosophical. But the wall's story doesn't end there. Even now, in the 21st century, the Great Wall faces new challenges. Not from invaders or emperors, but from nature and neglect. Wind, rain, and sandstorm continue to wear away its surface. Modern development threatens to consume what remains in remote regions. And so, once again, the people of China, the descendant of those who built it, are called to protect it. Scholars, volunteers, and conservationists have joined hands to preserve the wall brick by brick. Some walk its length, documenting every curve and tower with drones and maps. Others use digital technology to create virtual reconstructions, ensuring that even if the stones fade, the story will live forever. The dragon, it seems, will never truly sleep again. Studio microphone narrator, poetic, emotional close. The Great Wall of China was born from fear, a fear of invasion, of chaos, of loss. But over 2,000 years, it has become something far greater, a monument not to war, but to endurance, not to conquest, but to the courage of human hands that refuse to give up. Every brick in its body holds a memory of someone who lived, loved, or died for their home. Every crack tells a story. Every stone whispers a name lost to time. And when the wind blows across its ridges, it carries with the voices of emperors and peasants alike, reminding us that history is not written only in books, but carved into the earth itself. Studio microphone narrator, final tone, strong and hopeful. So, if you ever stand upon the Great Wall, know that you are standing on more than stone. You are standing on the spirit of a civilization, a spirit that fell, was forgotten, and then rose again. The Great Wall may have been built to divide, but today it unites the world in wonder. Every stone tells a story. Every tower holds a secret. And every shadow cast upon the Great Wall whispers a single truth, that time can break empires, but not the spirit of those who built them. For over 2,000 years, the Great Wall of China has stood, sometimes tall and proud, sometimes broken and forgotten, but always there, watching the world change. It began as a line of defense, carved by the sweat and sacrifice of millions. But today, it stands as something far greater, a symbol not of separation, but of unity, a testament to the resilience of humankind itself. Studio microphone narrator, steady, reflective tone. From the ancient days of the Qin dynasty to the bustling world of the 21st century, the Great Wall has witnessed everything. It has seen the birth of dynasties and the fall of kingdoms, the march of soldiers and the laughter of travelers, the silence of war and the peace of dawn. The people who once built it are gone. Emperors, generals, farmers, prisoners, all turned to dust. Yet, what they left behind still stands, stretching across deserts, mountains, and rivers like the spine of a sleeping dragon. In its stones live the dreams of countless souls. Those who laid each brick under blazing sun, those who guarded its towers under the freezing stars, and those who perished believing they were part of something eternal. And, in a way, they were. Studio microphone narrator, calm, thoughtful tone. Today, the Great Wall of China is more than a structure. It's a mirror reflecting the heart of the nation. It reminds the Chinese people of their endurance through centuries of trials, invasion, war, famine, and revolution, yet always rising again, stronger than before. But its message goes beyond borders. To the world, the Great Wall represents the extraordinary power of human will. It shows that when people unite for a purpose, no matter how impossible, they can create something that lasts for eternity. The wall was once a barrier built out of fear, but now it stands as a bridge connecting generations, cultures, and civilizations. Studio microphone narrator, descriptive tone, storytelling mode. Every year, millions of visitors from around the globe walk its ancient paths. At sunrise, the wall glows golden, stretching endlessly across the ridges of the mountains. Tourists stand in awe, snapping photos, whispering in wonder as they realize they're standing on history itself. Children run up its steep steps laughing, elders pause to catch their breath, and young lovers carve their initials into the railing, promising forever beneath the shadow of eternity. And as the wind blows across the stones, it carries the same whispers heard by soldiers 2,000 years ago, the sound of the earth breathing, the sound of time moving on. To walk the Great Wall is to walk to the story of humanity, to feel, for a moment, what it means to belong to something greater than oneself. Studio microphone narrator, emotional tone. But even as the world admires its beauty, the Great Wall continues to face challenges. Time, wind, and rain still wear away its stones. In remote regions, where few travelers go, sections crumble quietly into the earth. Yet, there are those who refuse to let it vanish. Archaeologists, historians, and volunteers, people of all walks of life, dedicate their time to preserving the wall. Some hike for weeks through mountains and deserts to record forgotten stretches. Others use modern technology, drones, satellite imaging, 3D scanning, to map and restore what nature and neglect have taken. They know they are not just protecting a monument, they are protecting memory. Because the Great Wall is not only a wonder of engineering, it's a heartbeat from the past. To lose it would be to lose a piece of who we are. Studio microphone narrator, philosophical tone. In many ways, the wall mirrors life itself. We build walls to protect, to divide, to defend what we love. But over time, those walls crumble, and we realize that the greatest strength comes not from isolation, but from unity. The Great Wall, born out of fear, has become a symbol of peace. It reminds us that humanity's greatest achievements are never built by one person, but by many, often unseen, unthanked, but forever remembered. Each brick was laid by human hands, each step climbed by human feet, and each story told upon it reminds us of our shared destiny, to build, to endure, and to dream. Studio microphone narrator, gentle, cinematic tone. As night falls upon the wall, the moon rises above its peaks, painting the stones in silver light. It looks almost alive, a serpent twisting to the mountains, breathing in the cool air of eternity. From above, it stretches as far as the eye can see, an endless ribbon cutting through time itself. In that quiet stillness, you can almost hear the voices of the past, the clang of hammers, the crackle of fire beacons, the songs of workers carried by the wind. Their voices may be faint, but they are never gone. They are part of the wall now, part of its soul, and that is its true legacy, that through struggle, sacrifice, and endurance, humanity leaves behind something that speaks long after words are forgotten. Studio microphone narrator, strong, uplifting tone. The Great Wall of China may have begun as a defense against enemies, but it has become a bridge to the world, a symbol of strength, heritage, and hope. It teaches us that greatness is not found in the height of towers or the size of empires, but in the courage to build something that outlives us. It teaches us that even the strongest walls can crumble, yet the spirit that built them endures forever. And it teaches us that history is not something distant and cold, but alive, living in every stone, every scar, every whisper of wind that passes over its ancient path. Studio microphone narrator, final, emotional tone. So the next time you see a photo of the Great Wall, or better yet, stand upon its stones, take a moment to listen. Listen to the echoes of time. Listen to the heartbeat of those who built it. Listen to the voice of the earth reminding you that nothing, not even stone, is truly eternal, except for spirit. Because the Great Wall of China is not just a monument of the past. It is a message for the future. A message that says, humanity can fall, but it can always rise again. Studio microphone narrator, closing note, gentle call to action. And that, dear listeners, is the eternal legacy of the Great Wall, a legacy carved not only into mountains, but into the hearts of those who remember. If you've enjoyed this journey through time, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Golden Ancient Tales, where the past comes alive and history speaks through stories. Because every ancient stone still has a voice, and together we'll keep those voices alive.